Sponsored by NordVPN.
In iOS 6, we have built an entire new mapping solution from the ground up, and it is beautiful.
iOS 6 Apple Maps. It's been a really long time since we've heard those words, but today I wanted to take a look at this app almost 10 years later after the release of iOS 6 and see if this app is still usable in 2022. Let's get right into it. Now, upon opening this app, one of the things you'll quickly realize is that things just aren't loading on this app anymore. Back in the 2012 days, you could use this thing for navigation, ask Siri to give you directions, but all we can do here is pretty much just zoom into buildings, but even that itself was a pretty impressive feature. But at the same time, this app did have its flaws. It wasn't the perfect experience. This was Apple's first attempt at making their own Apple Maps application, of course with the help of TomTom, but once this thing did launch, there were a lot of glitches and a lot of people weren't happy about the experience, and this did cost Apple a lot of money. Now, just taking a look at this interface, it's pretty clean, I'm not gonna lie. I really liked how basic this was. Like, you just had three options: a car, walking, or bus. I would assume that's transportation, but as you guys can see, it's just not working. If you do use satellite mode, which I'm using here, it does work to some extent, but you're not able to use the standard view. Now, one of the things that I remember about this app was using Siri, and for some reason, even Siri doesn't work on iOS 6 anymore. And I've made videos in the past, maybe a year ago, and Siri was working perfectly fine. So it really feels like Apple is slowly making iOS 6 more and more less usable every single day, which is really unfortunate because I know there's a lot of people out there who really want to try using apps like these, and it's really unfortunate that you just can't use these anymore. But this right here is a photo that I took back in 2020, so this was 2 years ago, and the app was working perfectly fine. So it kind of gives you guys an idea of what it looked like when you were actually on the commute and on the go. It's pretty cool to see. And of course, the functionality of this app today is pretty much limited. You're not going to be using this thing to find directions to your local McDonald's or anything like that. It's kind of convenient how I have everything blacked out here so I don't accidentally leak myself. But yeah, that's the iOS 6 Apple Maps experience. Kind of sad to see that Apple is kind of deliberately making iOS 6 less usable by the day. And it's pretty sad because I love iOS 6 and kind of just wish it had a little bit more usability. And for my iOS 6 users out there, I'm always going to try stressing this in my videos. Be super careful about what type of information you store on these devices. These are running outdated software, so of course it's not going to have the same security as, let's say, iOS 16 has. So just keep that in mind. I should probably log out of Twitter here just to be on the safe side. And speaking of security measures, you can also take the next step to protect your online privacy using NordVPN. Now, traditionally, setting up a VPN can be a bit annoying, but NordVPN makes the process so much easier, and you can use it on up to 6 different devices. And with the click of a single button, they offer the best VPN to protect your online privacy when browsing the internet or watching TV shows from a country that you aren't in. And personally, my favorite feature is threat protection. It allows you to safely browse and download files from any website without having to worry about accidentally downloading malware, especially on older devices like these. You'll be spending a lot of time finding old iPhone apps to put on these phones, and you definitely want to make sure you guys are protected from malicious ads or unwanted files when browsing websites to download these apps. Now, NordVPN is offering their 2-year plan with an exclusive discount for you guys, plus 4 bonus months absolutely free, and this also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. You guys can check it out in the description box below or head to nordvpn.com/iClassic to start protecting your most valuable data. So now that we've learned a little bit more about what it's like using iOS 6 Apple Maps in 2022, let's talk a little bit more about its history. Of course, the team behind iOS 6 Apple Maps, and one of the key players in this was Scott Forstall that you guys see here. He was the senior vice president of iOS in 2012, but was later fired by Tim Cook due to the many flaws that the iOS 6 Apple Maps app had. And like I previously mentioned, this was a very expensive mistake for Apple. A lot of people ended up just using Google Maps as an alternative. And it kind of comes to show that software is not always perfect, and Apple learned from that mistake. If they did something like this today, I'm sure this would be much, much worse, especially on more modern software like iOS 16. But knowing Apple, they generally do tend to take their time with software nowadays. They're not going to release something that's buggy. It's usually pretty smooth. and it's pretty funny. I mean, even the app itself looks like you're driving off the road. So yeah, that's the iOS 6 Apple Maps disaster, as many people might want to call it. But I will say in general, I still think that iOS 6 was a really great operating system, especially on the iPhone 5, because it was just so smooth, so fluid. The animations were literally like pure butter, like they were so buttery smooth. You know, being able to use it today, it's still a great experience. Of course, apps like Apple Maps are not going to work, but as you guys can see here, we do have a black iPhone 5. This one does not have a functioning app at all. So, you know, nothing is loading on this one, but on the white one, it does load, which I'm not sure why, but I guess it really depends on what device that you have. Maybe it's like an outdated API, or maybe something's wrong with the baseband. I have no idea. But if there are any other developers out there who are willing to make a tweak on Cydia that can fix these issues with iOS 6, that would honestly be amazing. Like, imagine being able to use iOS 6 Apple Maps with its full functionality in 2022. I honestly think that would be pretty cool. Oh, and one other thing that maybe you guys could also bring back is the weather app. I really like the old weather app as well. Of course, this one doesn't work because the Yahoo servers have been shut down since who knows how long, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video on iOS 6 Apple Maps. I know there were a lot of mistakes that Apple made, but you know, Apple has learned from these mistakes, and personally, I'm still using the native iOS Apple Maps application on my iPhone 13 Pro all the time. Like, I don't use Google Maps at all. I mean, I used to before, but I started using Apple Maps recently, and I really like the app. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys liked it, leave a comment down below. Catch you guys on the next one.